Hey, good morning. We are live. It is 1:50 in the morning on the 12th of May 2021. Good morning. It's Wednesday morning. We're watching a severe thunderstorm capable of producing damaging straight-line winds and perhaps a brief tornado moving into the Rio Grande Valley. We've got a severe thunderstorm warning currently in place. Winds now up to 80 miles per hour. So this is a dangerous severe thunderstorm capable of producing hurricane-force straight-line winds up to 80 miles an hour, currently located approaching Interstate 69 Echo, near Combs, just east of Primera, east of Santa Rosa, approaching Harlingen, San Benito, Rancho Viejo, and Brownsville. It's generally over Rangerville right now. Specifically, we'll switch from the how hard it's raining mode to the which way the wind is blowing mode. You can see we've got very strong straight line winds indicated with this thunderstorm, and there is a circulation trying to spin up on Highway 281 on the just southeast of Rangerville. Give me just a second. I'm going to make sure I get my stuff pulled up here so I'm able to monitor the situation and maintain situational awareness. All right. So again, it's currently 1:50 Wednesday morning, the 12th of May. We talked about it last evening in our severe weather blog that a relatively substantial severe weather threat could exist in the Rio Grande Valley in South Texas tonight, and here we go. All right, I only need to open one of these. Close that. Got that up. So again, this is a dangerous, honestly, I'd say pretty much supercellular thunderstorm capable of producing destructive winds up to 80 miles per hour. Perhaps some quarter-size hail, in addition to the potential of a brief tornado. What we're going to do is look at the winds. Radar is showing winds over 80 miles an hour. This is generally moving east-southeast towards the city of Brownsville, up Interstate 69E to Rancho Viejo, Los Fresnos, Bayville. And eventually, if this thunderstorm continues, it could impact South Padre Island and Port Isabel. So this is a thunderstorm capable of producing winds of 60 to 80 miles per hour. It would be hurricane force winds. In addition, we're watching this little, let me switch back over to how hard it's raining, this little appendage on the leading edge of this thunderstorm. That could be where we have a circulation attempting to spin up. We'll switch back over to, we'll use this. You can see we've got a rear flank downdraft just south of the Rio Grande, currently swinging around, winds well over 80 miles an hour. As this spins around, we could see a tornadic circulation develop briefly. Right now, it's over Highway 281 near Los Indios, moving towards La Paloma, east on 281. As this thunderstorm continues to move east, and you can see we've got a new scan there. Let's see what the highest winds are indicated. You can see we've got very bright blue colors showing up on the weather radar, and that is indicative of very strong straight line winds. In fact, showing winds now approaching 85 miles an hour, literally on the Rio Grande or the international border, just southeast of Los Indios, moving towards La Paloma. This eventually is going to continue moving east-southeast, crossing over the Rio Grande, and generally moving towards the city of Brownsville. So this is a relatively dangerous situation for the Brownsville metro, as we have a dangerous thunderstorm capable of producing hurricane-force winds over 80 miles an hour, and the potential for a brief tornado. I wonder, am I actually freezing up like that? Or is that just my graphic card? It might just be my graphics card. Make sure we get this out on YouTube. Or excuse me, off on the Twitter. And outside of the Rio Grande Valley in far south Texas, we do not have any severe weather ongoing. Thunderstorms impacted the middle Texas coast earlier, lots of lightning. We do have a severe thunderstorm warning up the coast. This is going to be east of Armstrong, east of Highway 77, in essentially very rural areas. So we're not going to worry about that. What we are worrying about is a thunderstorm capable of producing destructive straight-line winds over 80 miles per hour, moving into the Rio Grande Valley.
North of Port Mansfield.
North of Port Mansfield, a bit of a circulation. What, up here?
Probably elevated, but worth noting.
Is anything elevated in the Rio Grande Valley? I mean, it's 81 over 79. Up here, it's 73 over 66. The voice you just heard, by the way, is Alex Bartholomew, who came up this evening to pay a visit to TSC HQ and now gets to witness Baldy and Sheep, or as someone was kind enough to call me earlier, Bald Leprechaun, do severe weather coverage. So we're watching a intense thunderstorm capable of producing hurricane force winds over 80 miles an hour moving towards Brownsville. This thunderstorm is now, the leading edge of which is now southeast of Rangerville, generally approaching La Paloma to San Benito to Harlingen. Heavy rain, gusty winds, a lot of lightning moving into Harlingen right now. We'll be moving into San Benito shortly. Same thing for La Paloma. I'm going to make sure close this, make sure we get that back up. So this is a pretty dangerous thunderstorm. Very heavy rainfall that could cause some street flooding. Potential for some small hail, but in terms of the primary hazard, it's going to be wind. You can see the radar in Brownsville showing winds well over 60 miles an hour, moving towards Harlingen, currently just northeast of Mercedes, and Westlaco, near La Feria, and Radamosa, moving towards Palm Valley, Primera, and Harlingen. Moving south, we have this section of wind just south of the Rio Grande, moving towards the city of Brownsville. These are winds over 75 miles per hour, hurricane force winds. Let me probe some data as soon as it's kind enough to load. I don't know why sometimes it does that and sometimes it works perfectly, but, well, technology, you gotta love it, you gotta hate it. At 2 in the morning, all you can do is throw beer cans at it and hope it catches on fire. So, we've got winds showing up in excess of hurricane force, 75 to 80 miles per hour. We'll switch to a tool that lets us see exactly how far this is from the city of Brownsville. This is currently 11 miles northwest of the city of Brownsville in the Rio Grande, moving southeast. So this could bring destructive hurricane force winds to the city of Brownsville over the next 30 minutes. The storm's moving east at about 30 miles an hour, so about 20 minutes or less. A little sooner for the west side of Brownsville, a little later for the east side. And we're going to have to keep an eye on this thunderstorm for the potential of brief tornadoes as well. While the strongest, most intense winds are just south of the Rio Grande and the international border at the moment, we're showing winds approaching 60 to 70 miles an hour coming into Santa Rosa, Primera, Combs, Harlingen, La Ferrera. Say it for me. This. La Ferrera? Feria. Thank you.
I believe.
Something like that. You can yell at me and send me hate.
Poquito español.
Gracias, senor. Bet you didn't know I spoke a little Spanish, did you? Okay, let me turn off the spatial tool. I do need to learn more of that. Sorry, random conversation in the middle of severe weather coverage. But hey, thanks for joining us this morning. It's 1:57 on the 12th of May, 2021, watching a severe storm capable of producing winds of 60 to 80 miles an hour moving into the Harlingen and Brownsville metro areas. There is the potential for some flooding and a brief tornado with this thunderstorm as it moves east at 25 to 30 miles per hour. You can see it's exhibiting a bit of a bow structure over Harlingen, Interstate 69E, with the apex of the bow honestly heading right towards the city of Brownsville. This storm's capable of knocking down palm trees, capable of causing damage to buildings, capable of causing fences, stuff like that can be blown around easily by the wind to get blown down, and any trampolines may end up about 5 blocks to your east-southeast. We're showing winds over 60 miles an hour in Mercedes, La Ferrera, moving towards Primera and Harlingen, along with very heavy rainfall. So this is a thunderstorm you want to take seriously. You want to get away from west-facing windows as the storm rolls on in. And keep in mind, this storm's also likely to cause some street flooding. Now, this is east of McAllen, east of Edinburgh, east of Interstate 69 Charlie. Essentially, it's riding down Interstate 2 towards Interstate 69 Echo, 69E. And that is going to ride this storm all the way down to Brownsville and the Rio Grande and international border. With that, we're going to drink some Mountain Dew. No, not a product endorsement. Although, hey, you know what? Mountain Dew, you want to shoot some money our way to feature your product on air? Feel free to, but somehow I doubt they're going to do that for someone streaming severe weather coverage at 2 in the morning. But again, we're here because we're watching a severe storm capable of producing 60, 70, and even 80 mile per hour winds. Now, the highest winds with this thunderstorm are currently over Interstate 2 near La Fiera, just east of Mercedes, moving towards Interstate 69 Echo, near Santa Rosa to Combs to Primera to Palm Valley, Harlingen, down to San Benito. And then eventually we're going to have another section of very strong winds just south of the international border move towards Brownsville. Notice since this Brownsville is southeast of the storm and the storm's moving east-southeast, those very strong winds associated with the apex feature of this thunderstorm, where the winds are pushing out the thunderstorm a bit quickly, that is where we have the highest winds and the potential for wind damage. We'll take a look at a different product real quick. We know this thunderstorm's producing very heavy rainfall and a copious amount of lightning. I mean, it's pretty much summer down in the Rio Grande Valley now, so there's a lot of instability, even at 2 in the morning. Let's see how much rain this storm has dropped over the last, say, you know what, let's just do storm total precip, and hopefully this will give us a good view. You can see this thunderstorm's dropped perhaps a couple of inches of rain near McAllen. As it rides down Interstate 2, it's quickly dropping 1 to 2 inches of rain. That could cause some street flooding, and if for some reason this storm were to stick around longer, it could even cause some more substantial flash flooding. We'll switch to the 1-hour radar estimate rainfall. And yeah, this storm's been dropping 1 to 2 inches of rain in 60 minutes. So that is certainly capable of briefly overwhelming water drainage infrastructure and causing street flooding. Why, hello, CC. Good morning. Sorry, dog said hello. Alright, so the apex feature of this thunderstorm is now about 8 to 9 miles west of the city of Brownsville. We'll turn on the super duper line measurement tool, put it on the Rio Grande, and yeah, it's about 7 miles northwest of the city of Brownsville, about to cross the international border and cross into South Texas from near Rancho Viejo to San Pedro, Cameron Park, Brownsville, and after that, it's going to keep moving towards the coast. Now, assuming this keeps moving east-southeast, the strongest portion of this storm will pass south of the Rio Grande, south of the international border by the time it gets east of Brownsville, and thus should pass south of South Padre Island and Port Isabel. Could still be a lot of lightning, heavy rain, gusty winds in both those towns as this thunderstorm approaches over the next, hour and a half. But the radar is still showing quite strong winds back in the heavier rain of this thunderstorm back over Interstate 2. Let me turn off the spatial tool. You can see winds showing up 55, 60, 65 miles an hour back in the heavy rain north of Mercedes. So this thunderstorm is quite capable of producing strong gusty winds even after the leading edge of the storm arrives and back in the heavy rainfall. See, we just got an update there. The blues and brighter greens indicate the potential for winds of 50 to 60, even 70 miles an hour. Now, the good news is, over the last 5 minutes, we've seen the wind intensity decrease somewhat. We had dark blues, indicative of winds of 85 plus miles an hour. At this point, that wind signature has decreased a bit, so we might be dealing with winds of 60 to 70 miles per hour versus hurricane force winds of 80 plus miles an hour. We'll take a look at the storm relative velocity, and yeah, we have a little circulation south of the international border. That should stay south of Texas. Cute little hook appendage feature down there, again, well into Mexico. That's unfortunate. And then up in Texas, we're kind of on the north side of this evolving complex of thunderstorms. Now, what we are going to have to watch for back here towards La Fiera and Mercedes is if we have a comma head feature develop. And we saw that earlier today in southeast Texas, where we had a circulation develop on the north side of this thunderstorm complex. And I won't go into the meteorological nerdness of it all, but when you get a well-developed bow echo or squall line or thunderstorm complex that bows out, here, I'll turn the telestrator on, Turn that off. Kind of bows out like this. Sometimes you can see the top end of the squall wrap around like that, and sometimes you can get a circulation to develop and produce tornadoes. Now, there's no evidence we're seeing anything like that right now. As we switch over to the which way the wind is blowing mode, we see some strong straight line winds being pushed out, but we do not see any sort of evidence that would involve a tornadic circulation. At least a strong low-level rotation. Nevertheless, we'll keep an eye on it. The storm's certainly capable of producing very heavy rainfall, damaging straight-line winds, some small hail, and enough lightning to wake half the folks down at the local cemetery. What, I don't get a laugh for that analogy? That goes to show how much people pay attention to severe weather coverage. So again, got some very strong winds now about 5 miles west of the city of Brownsville. Moving towards the city of Brownsville at about 30 miles per hour. This is going to be a storm capable of producing wind damage. Could knock down some fences in Brownsville, could knock some trees down, could knock down some palm trees. I'd be impressed if it did, though. I mean, if you can withstand hurricanes for the last 5 years, you can withstand a damaging thunderstorm wind gust. But, hey, you know what? Sometimes the palm trees just give up, especially after the winter we had. Oh, let's never think of that again. Winds 65 to 70 miles an hour possible in the city of Brownsville over the next 20 minutes. Now, we are going to have to watch for something I'm noticing just southwest of Rancho Viejo. Starting to see a little appendage on the leading edge of the squall line. And sometimes, just like the comma head feature on the north side I described a moment ago, you can see brief tornadic circulation spin up. And indeed, it is possible we have a little bit of a circulation trying to spin up there. At the least, that could enhance damage and straight line wind potential at the surface. At worst, we could have a quick tornado try and spin up. No tornado warnings in effect right now, but we do have a severe thunderstorm warning, and that is for the potential of damaging straight line winds of 60 to 70 miles per hour. Small hail, very heavy rainfall, obnoxious amounts of lightning, and again, we can't rule out a brief tornado this morning, but it won't be the kind of a tornado that stays down for a long period of time and does all sorts of catastrophic damage. But, you know, you still got to respect them, because if it hits your house, it's going to be a big deal, even if it's a little EF0. You going to bed?
No.
So, it is now 2:07 in the morning. Good morning. I'm David Reimer with the Texas Storm Chasers. We're watching a severe thunderstorm moving into the Harlingen and Brownsville metro areas in the Rio Grande Valley. You can keep an eye on the storms with our interactive weather radar on our website at texasstormchasers.com/radar. And just download our free mobile app. You can use that too. So what we're going to do, I'm going to switch to a different product just to see what we've got going on. We're going to switch back and take a look at the state of Texas. This is going to be a bit of a weird view, I know, but you'll have to deal with it. The reds and darker colors indicate upper-level clouds associated with either rain or thunderstorms. You can see most of the state, with the exception of a few showers up in the Texas Panhandle, you've got the purples and the blues. The blues are low-level clouds or even some fog and mist. And I can animate this over the last couple of hours. Hopefully not blowing this program up while doing so, but we'll see. I hope it loads the animation. It'd be a cool animation. I'm going to be somewhat disappointed if it doesn't load the animation, but at the same time, and I don't think it's going to load the animation. What a poop. I know, you wanted me to sound more professional. I described a poop.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very proud of myself. I'm sure I'm going to get a lecture from you about it later. So, again, we'll turn off the satellite data since it seems to hate me this morning. The only rain we have ongoing in the state outside of the Rio Grande Valley now are some showers in the eastern Brazos Valley and East Texas. We've got some showers in the western Texas Panhandle, where temperatures, I am willing to bet, are not all that warm. I wouldn't be shocked if we had 40s. Yep, we have 46 degrees in Lubbock. We have 45 degrees in Amarillo on May 12th. 39 degrees just northwest of Dalhart. That's ridiculous. So much for spring, right? Don't worry, spring returns next week. But the reason we're here this morning is because we're talking about severe weather in the Rio Grande Valley, far south Texas. Now, keep in mind, the state of Texas has the potential, could be literally categorized up into 4 large states. We're talking about one mega state. So sometimes the severe weather is going to be up in the Texas Panhandle. Sometimes it's going to be 750 miles southeast or more in Brownsville. So let's go ahead, zoom back on in, and we'll take a look at what we have going on. We'll turn back on the severe weather warnings. We do note that little circulation well southwest of the Rio Grande and international border, southwest of Brownsville. That's a pretty good sign of a tornado spin up there. Have another little signature due west of Brownsville, but in Mexico and staying in Mexico. And honestly, I'm still keeping an eye on this convergent signature southwest of Rancho Viejo, moving towards the city of Brownsville. Could have damaging straight line winds, and honestly, the more I look at this, the more I think it could try and produce a quick little tornado spin up. But again, no tornado warnings in effect. The potential certainly exists for damaging straight line winds. Look at this. I really think.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That is interesting. So we've got a storm capable of producing 60 to 70 mile an hour straight line winds moving towards the city of Brownsville. About 20 minutes ago, we had winds well over tornado warning for New Orleans.
Interesting special marine warning just to the east of Corpus Christi out in the Gulf for water spouts.
Oh, well, let's go take a look. Those blue boxes
It'll
are...
be this one right here, the very far east one.
These boxes, the blue boxes, are special marine warnings, essentially severe thunderstorm or tornado warnings for the water. Switch over to the velocity, and yeah, there is some circulation out here for sure. And for fun and smile's sake, we note there's a tornado warning for the city of New Orleans in Louisiana. We'll take a quick look at velocity.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's right in downtown. Goodness.
There's a TDS. If this is right, there's a tornado in downtown New Orleans right now. I'm not willing to say that for sure, but that's a pretty significant evidence that there's a tornado debris signature in downtown New Orleans right now. Very interesting. So, apparently there's a tornado right now in downtown New Orleans. Okay then, well, that wasn't supposed to happen tonight. But alas, we're not here to talk about New Orleans this morning. We're here to talk about Texas. And the reason we're talking about Texas live at 2 in the morning, and you're going to look at Baldy in Chief, myself, is we've got a severe thunderstorm capable of producing damaging straight line winds up to 70 miles per hour, maybe a brief tornado, and lots of heavy rain and small hail.
Let's do it. That's a tornado. 100%.
Yeah. I'm pretty confident a tornado just hit downtown New Orleans. That's not ideal. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But for now, we'll keep watching our storms here in Texas. We've got damaging straight line winds up to 70 miles per hour, imminently arriving in the west side of Brownsville.
It was a weak tornado, but
It was
definitely a tornado.
Yeah, probably a weak tornado, but we'll open that chat room real quick. So, in the next, we've got very heavy rain falling in Harlingen, a lot of cloud-to-ground lightning. Same thing in San Benito, about to happen in Rancho Viejo. And then strong winds, heavy rain, and lightning about to arrive in the city of Brownsville over the next 10 to 15 minutes. A bit sooner on the west side. A bit later on the east side. We'll go ahead and switch back over from the how hard it's raining mode to the which way the wind is blowing mode. And the closer this gets to the weather radar in Brownsville, the less impressive the wind signature looks. Now, there could be two reasons for this. One, we're kind of looking almost due west from the radar. That can kind of cause some data issues in terms of velocity. Another thing is, as the storm gets closer to the radar, we're looking lower in the atmosphere. So right here, we're probably looking 300 to 400 feet above the surface. Radar is indicating winds of about, I'd say 55 to 60 miles an hour. We still do note that little bit of rotation now approaching Interstate 69 Echo between Rancho Viejo and the northwest side of Brownsville. Stronger winds being indicated on the Mexican side of the river, along with very heavy rainfall. You can kind of see how this thunderstorm is bowing out. You see how the apex, or the most eastward portion of that bow, is coming right into Brownsville, especially the north side of town. That's where we could have some very strong straight-line winds. In addition, this thunderstorm's extending back northwest over San Benito, Harlingen, westward on Interstate 2, Santa Rosa on Highway 107, La Villa on 107, Elsa 107, and then La Fiera, Mercedes, and Westlaco on Interstate 2. Could still have gusty winds, a lot of lightning, along with very heavy rainfall. I think over the next hour, our concern is going to switch from damaging straight-line winds to the potential for some localized flash flooding and street flooding. Radar is still showing winds of about, let's say 50 to 60 over La Fiera. No signs of rotation. And we'll switch over to a different product. We'll see how much rain has fallen over the last hour according to the radar. We're now getting up to 3 inches in the last hour in La Villa. In Elsa, about 2 inches in Mercedes. So we are going to have to keep a close eye on these storms for flash flooding, especially if they start slowing down from east of Edinburgh and Lopezville to McAllen east on Interstate 2, Alamo, Westlaco to La Fiera to Harlingen. If these storms start slowing down and trying to stall, we're going to have an issue of very heavy rain falling over the same areas.
Just a quick note, if that was in fact a tornado, it made a direct hit on the Superdome.
Interesting. If there was a tornado in New Orleans, apparently it just said hello to the Superdome. So I guess we're probably going to know pretty soon if something happened, because it's kind of hard to not hear about something in a downtown corridor. But that circulation has weakened for the most part after apparently the possibility of a brief tornado moving through downtown New Orleans. They've certainly had their fair share of tornadoes over the last 5 years, and they probably just had another one. All right. Switch back over to the Rio Grande Valley. And so what we're looking at is we're keeping an eye on the storms for the potential of flash flooding. We're keeping an eye on the storms for damaging straight-line wind potential. And just in case we have a low-level circulation try and develop. No obvious tornadic circulations at this time. We are hearing about wind damage in Westlaco, around McAllen and Edinburgh. We're hearing of tree limbs knocked down, a lot of trash cans blown halfway to Kingdom Come, some fences maybe down, etc. So we know there is some damaging straight-line winds occurring with this thunderstorm moving into La Fiera, Harlingen, San Benito, Rancho Viejo, and the city of Brownsville. And you know, that just still looks like a very weak low-level circulation, but a circulation nevertheless. So there could be some damaging straight-line winds moving into Rancho Viejo and the northwest side of Brownsville. At worst, if this thing were to try to intensify just a little bit, maybe a very brief weak tornado, frankly, it doesn't matter. Both would produce the same kind of wind damage. So let's switch back over to the how hard it's raining mode. You can see we've got very heavy rain now moving into the west side of the city of Brownsville. A lot of damaging straight-line winds, heavy rain, a lot of lightning. You know, all the good stuff you love getting woken up by at 2:17 in the morning. You can use our interactive weather radar to keep an eye on the storms. TexasStormChasers.com/radar. Some of that radar data does include northern Mexico, too. So if you have friends or loved ones in northern Mexico, they can use that same radar to see what's going on. The radar data from the Brownsville radar should extend about 150 miles south into northern Mexico. So that can be useful for our friends south of the international border. Still looking at very strong winds in La Fiera, moving towards Harlingen. I'll make sure that's on. We've got wind damage reports earlier, back west of McAllen. We had a 63-mile-per-hour wind gust in McAllen at 1:07 this morning. We've got some wind damage reported in Donna and Alamo on Interstate 2. We have wind damage now reported in Westlaco. So these storms continue to move east at about 30 miles per hour, which means they're generally not sticking around too long in most locations. But I will say this. I'm going to switch data real quick. We're going to zoom out. Let me switch to this. Switch back to the radar, how hard it's raining. I'm going to look at the last hour. The reason we're doing this is I'm becoming more concerned about some heavy rain flash flooding potential around Harlingen. You notice how those storms are trying to kind of curve back around and generally sit over the same area? What we call training thunderstorms. That's where you have very heavy rainfall, fall over the same areas for a while. And in this case, these storms are producing 2 to 4 inches of rain in an hour. So if you have a storm sit over one location too long, we're going to end up with some flash flooding issues pretty quickly. So I want to keep an eye out for localized flash flooding in Harlingen, La Fiera to West Laco, Santa Rosa. Now, let me be clear. We're not talking about some historic, crazy flooding like we've seen in years past in the Rio Grande Valley, where we had 20 inches of rain fall in a night and catastrophic flooding. The flooding I'm talking about is street flooding, low water crossings, some streams, creeks, etc. We're not talking about historic, crazy flooding. Nevertheless, we don't want folks trying to drive into floodwaters. And that's a little easier to do in the middle of the night when you may not know a road is flooded. So we've got some gusty winds in La Fiera, Ratamosa, Primera, and Harlingen. A lot of cloud-to-ground lightning. Storm is now moving into the city of Brownsville. Radar showing some strong winds, probably 40 to 60 miles per hour. And the storm continues to move east at 30 miles an hour. So at some point here soon, we're likely to have some rain, thunder, and lightning in South Padre Island, Bayview, Los Fresnos, and Port Isabel. I'm just looking over some data here real quick. And we note with the SpaceX launch facilities being southeast of Port Isabel, they could begin in on some gusty winds, heavy rain, and lightning here in about 30 minutes. So the SpaceX facilities, and I'll have to actually get this added on this map, are right here. That's where SpaceX has been building and launching rockets, etc. All the stuff SpaceX does. They've been building a huge facility southeast of Port Isabel, and that's been becoming a major base for SpaceX, essentially. So it's great to see space activity continue in the state of Texas in the 21st century. So again, this thunderstorm capable of producing damaging straight line winds, very heavy rain, cloud to ground lightning, not only moving into Brownsville now, could be moving into Port Isabel, the SpaceX facilities, and South Padre Island in about 30 minutes or so. I don't believe they have any scheduled launches tonight, but they wouldn't be launching in a thunderstorm anyway. Hopefully. Be interesting to see. One day, perhaps. So it's pouring rain on Interstate 69E from Brownsville to Rancho Viejo to San Benito to Harlingen to La Fiera, west to West Laco, up through Primera, Santa Rosa. We'll switch back over to the how much rain has fallen over the last 1 hour. Let me see which one's being more accurate here. We'll use this one. Radar estimates up to 3 inches of rain over the last hour. That's bound to cause some street flooding for sure, because it takes water time to run off, especially more urbanized locations. And this heavy rain is moving into Brownsville. It's currently falling in Harlingen, San Benito, Rangerville, Progreso, Weslaco. Switching back, we'll take a look at how much rain's fallen over this whole event. And as we look back west into McAllen, Edinburgh, you can see we've had rainfall amounts of up to 3 to 4 inches indicated by radar. So in addition to the wind damage they experienced this evening, or this morning, the potential for some street flooding continues, even though we now have rain moving out. Alright, so heavy rain now in the city of Brownsville, gusty winds, maybe some small hail. We've got gusty winds and heavy rain in Mercedes, La Fiera, Harlingen, Santa Rosa, San Benito. After this, the storm will continue moving east-southeast at about 30 miles per hour, eventually impacting South Padre Island, Port Isabel. And the SpaceX facility is just southeast of Port Isabel, north of Highway 4. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and terminate our live severe weather coverage. You think we're good?
Yeah.
And we'll definitely be here to keep an eye on things. If we need to come back, we'll come back. But again, I think our concern is going to transition over to a...
There is a bit of a comma head just to the north of the international border near Harlingen.
Yeah, I see that right here.
But it is very disorganized at the moment. It's just something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Now, let me explain a comma head real quick before we go anywhere, because it's 2 in the morning, I've had caffeine, and I get to nerd out. This is a thunderstorm complex, bowing out. You can kind of see the bow shape here. On the north side of these thunderstorm complexes, where they kind of curve northwest, you can sometimes see features like this develop right here. And sometimes you might see tornadic circulations or damaging straight line winds develop in those comma head features, since it resembles a comma head. At this point, visually on the reflectivity, yeah, we've got a comma head. That's pretty evident. As we look at the which way the wind is blowing mode, radar is showing some winds of 55 to 60 miles per hour. And this would be moving towards Rangerville and Rancho Viejo. Switching to the storm relative velocity, we do not see any sort of signal right now that would indicate a tornado is trying to develop. We'll look up and tilt a couple degrees just to make sure. We'd be looking for reds and blues, red and greens touching. And yeah, we don't have any strong signals of rotation in this thunderstorm at the moment. We'll keep an eye out on it for sure, but there's some rotation there, but we're looking at 15,000 feet above the surface. It doesn't really matter what's going on 15,000 feet above the surface as long as it's not going on at the surface, and it's not. So it could be some gusty winds up to 60 miles an hour with this little comma head feature over La Fiera. That's going to be moving southeast towards Rangerville. Eventually could say hello to Rancho Viejo and Brownsville.
Los Indios, La Paloma, Rangerville, not a tornado, but gusty winds. If you live in those areas, so stay away from your windows. Probably 50, 60 mile an hour gusts. It's going to be some gusty winds. Be a rough time. Just stay away from your windows. Stay interior of your home.
And that'll be moving towards, if it keeps going on present course, it could eventually move towards Brownsville. Again, gusty winds, heavy rain, lightning. Can't rule out a brief tornado, but it would have to organize a lot more for that to happen. So, with that being said, we'll keep an eye on things, but we'll go ahead and quit hogging up your social media live feeds this morning at 2:26. I'm David Reimer with Alex Bartholomew with the Texas Storm Chasers. You can keep an eye on the sky with our interactive weather radar in our mobile app. Just search for Texas Storm Chasers in your app store, or go view our radar on your website. Or your website. How about our website? You know what? That's an even better idea. At texasstormchasers.com/radar. Y'all have a good morning.